With Arsenal's biggest game of the last decade coming up in just a couple of days' time, it is time to finally look at the preview for the PSG tie and just how Arsenal can get at them, but what could be the most important part of it all. So let's get into it. Now, it's fair to say that even though Arsenal have been drawing and winning some Premier League games, no one really cares about them overall. It's all about this Champions League tie. And while there's also been a lot of transfer news, I have been waiting to be able to do this video because this is what we are all expecting. This PSG game, which is the biggest game at the Emirates in over a decade probably, and obviously the first semi-final in 16 years. Now, first of all, when Arsenal played PSG back in October, there was obviously a few big absentees from PSG's team. Dembele was not there because of disciplinary reasons and Luis Enrique took him out, and Kang In Lee actually played up front even though he's not really a striker, and Desir Duarte and Barcola were the wingers. Obviously Creature Kvaratskhelia hadn't joined yet. Now, despite that, the rest of the team was the exact same. Zaire Emery played in midfield, but Fabio Ruiz came on for Vitinha, who you expect to start, and other than that, Arsenal I think were quite dominant over them, not on stats wise, but scored 2 goals in that first half and then controlled the game. Now, it's interesting to say this, but Arsenal are the defensive favourites in this game, while PSG are the most free-flowing attacking team. This will be a massive game against the sort of defence versus attack systems, and Arsenal will have to rely on their defenders a lot, especially their fullbacks, to be very successful in this game. Now, that is because PSG's main form of attacking is getting their fullbacks very high up the pitch. Nuno Mendes and Hakimi are very good at going forward and being the runners when people in their midfield come a lot deeper. Not only this, their wingers are also players you love getting in one-on-one and in space, so on the counter-attack, because they will take anyone on and be confident in it as well, being able to score some incredible goals, which we have seen in the last few rounds now. And all of this is stitched together with Dembele playing up front, but not really as a natural number 9 and more as a secondary striker false 9, which we like doing as well. He comes a lot deeper, will bring defenders towards him and try and turn them and then put the wingers through, or he will then get into the box later and be that late form of pace to get in there, being a very effective player at making runs in behind one-on-one. This is really effective for their break, being able to come short and go long past the defenders, something Arsenal have actually needed for a while. Now, there's 2 main parts of this game that I think are going to be very interesting, and I think number 1 is the fullbacks of both teams. Not only are Nuno Mendes and Hakimi very attacking, they also can be caught on the transition. We saw this against Villa when Villa were having very much a lot of pressure in the second half, but even in that first, when PSG make them attacking runs with their fullbacks, you can see they can create big chances where even Nuno Mendes can come centrally and invert and find himself within the box to get that shot away, acting as that extra man. However, if they do fail or make a mistake in the attack and transitions, they can definitely be got at, and some of the times where Marquinhos and Pacho, the 2 centre-backs, have to come out wide, they're not brilliant out there, and sort of track runners, they really struggle with someone like Fabio Maurice having to be the one that comes back, or Neves. If Arsenal can invert their wingers and get them into more inside forward positions, they can also play close with the attacking third. Hopefully Marino is fit, obviously I'm expecting he will be, where they can have little intricate passes closer to each other to put each other through, which could be a great way of getting at them. Not only that, Arsenal's fullbacks themselves are going to be mightily important in attack and defence. In defence first, I expect it to be Jurriën Timber and Miles Skelly. Calafiori actually played in the first game against them and was relatively good, but Nuno Mendes, Barcola, Creature Kvaratskhelia, Desir Duarte, Hakimi are brilliant one-on-one capabilities going forward. They can take players on and be very good at trying to draw fouls and get through, and especially Nuno Mendes and Creature on that left-hand side are going to be a pain for Timber. However, in the first leg, we did see Timber easily deal with Barcola with that incredible tackle where he lunges past him when Barcola actually went past him originally, and we saw him deal with Nuno Mendes a lot even when he inverted inside, with Saka coming back to help quite a lot. This is going to be vitally important that the 2 fullbacks can get help from the 2 wingers, which we did see in that Real Madrid tie, and also making sure that they do not get good shots away or be able to dribble one-on-one within the box. This wing play is very effective for PSG's sort of overall game plan. They're not even a sort of team that really will always look for crosses into the box. They will mostly take the one-on-one players in to get better angles to shoot. So we need players to come across as well in the central areas and also be a lot more calmer in these areas, which I think is important. But going forward, they're also going to be very important as well. We've already mentioned about the defenders for PSG, the fullbacks, not really being able to come back all the time in transitions, especially when teams win the ball high up against them. So Timber, who probably won't go too forward like the Real Madrid game, but Miles can get into them elevated positions, not only really going out wide, but he can come inside into them half channels and pull away centre backs where we can have other runners in there. I do think this is going to be a very important part of the first leg to see how much PSG actually go up with their fullbacks and how much Arsenal do as well. There's always going to be a confidence thing, and it's going to be a very topsy-turvy system in them ways because both teams rely heavily on their fullbacks to create and be very good in them forward areas, especially as Arsenal have that third man within there. Now, the other part of the game which is going to be the most important is the midfield. Now, PSG have been setting up with a 4-3-3 and they've mostly been having a Fabian Ruiz, Vitinha and João Neves midfield, which has obviously been very successful. Obviously, Arsenal usually have their 4-3-3 with Odegaard, Partey and Rice. Partey won't be in this game. I would expect it to be Rice in the 6, Marino on the left and Trossard up front, which can also change into a 4-4-2 with maybe Marino going to even help defensively or up front with Trossard at certain points. But that is maybe the expectation that Arsenal have going into this game. Now, how PSG's midfield work together is very interesting. They are almost like rabid dogs, always running and making sure people can not get much time on it. Not many players against PSG have actually been brave enough to take the ball inside the half channel. There's a few points in certain games that they've played where people like John McGinn have actually come into these little pockets within the spaces and he's received and tried to turn one of their midfielders, usually being Fabian Ruiz, who is the probably weaker one out of the three, I would say. Now, there's been sort of moments where he can get past them, but the recovery speed of Vitinha and João Neves is incredible and they've been able to come back and just foul him off the ball, not letting him get through. This is something that a lot of big teams do, and when teams do actually have the confidence to go through the press, they will just take you out because that is the only way to get back. Obviously, yellow cards could be a big thing, but you would expect that not to be that much of a big deal for PSG, especially in that first leg. Now, the way that this may benefit Arsenal is down to physicality. A lot of the time that PSG will get back, they will kick you, they will sort of bully you off the ball to win it, and it is come from the amount of legs and the amount of effort that they put in from their midfield. However, one thing that was quite certain in the first leg against PSG was that Arsenal were able to easily go through their press multiple times. They didn't really understand whether to push up against Arsenal's back line or stop the midfield, and Arsenal were able to keep getting the ball out to Declan Rice outside that block to run into them channels, which we also saw against Real Madrid, and he was just an absolute powerhouse being able to go through and keep the ball in these moments. We also saw it with Trossard when he came a lot deeper and was actually as a +1, which PSG just didn't understand whether to pick him up because the centre-backs weren't following him and into a man-to-man, and he was able to just hold off players and continue to run through, which saw us create a lot of chances. Now, Arsenal's physicality in midfield is going to be vitally important. If they can bully PSG and not wanting to press and picking the ball up between the lines, if they can get Rice or Marino into that space to drive into the channels, it will be vitally important. Now, Rice being in the 6 role may change this a little bit, so you expect him to get that defensive help from Miles or someone like that. But with Miles being such a great player that can pick the ball up within the channel and with a lot of players around him, run through them, that will be a vital component to PSG's aggressive nature in the midfield to stop them winning the ball back, because they are very aggressive, and if you can get past that level, when you get to the back line, they are kind of exposed and are not the best defenders in the world, I would say, especially when they haven't got much help, which is to be expected. And the thing is that Arsenal always have certain ways to build up and get through press, and they're one of the best teams in Europe at it. Even if teams press really well, which PSG actually did against Villa, they kind of stopped them getting the ball into their midfielders and they couldn't really pick it up in them half channels. They were shadow blocking the runs as well brilliantly. Arsenal always have the ability to go long, which may also dominate PSG physically. This is where, if they are being very aggressive yet again, if Arsenal kick that ball long with Raya, who I expect passing to be a lot better than it was against Palace the other day, you can easily see Rice or Marino being able to head that ball and bring it down and help players run through. This will always give Arsenal that counter-attacking nuance that they could need if PSG do commit players forward from set pieces or other areas, and it could be a great way to get some of your fast aggressive players through on the break, such as your Martinellis as well and your Sakas, who maybe not as much in this game, but Martinelli I think will do it a lot. And last but not least, we're obviously going to talk about it. We talk about it in all our games where we play in a team that aren't as physical as PSG, but I do think the corners are going to be a big thing. thing, or just set pieces in general. We obviously scored a set piece from that free kick where everyone basically missed it and Donnarumma was a bit scared to come out. And Donnarumma is still not the best goalkeeper at claiming crosses. He's definitely got better at it this season, I think from corners especially, but he is a bit of a flappy keeper and will punch the ball a lot. If Arsenal can get the second balls first, which we saw against Madrid as well, from the edge of the box with Rice and some physical presence there, but also be dominant within the box, Arsenal could really get at this PSG side. And the set piece prowess hasn't been the most evident recently, but it's still there and they still have it with people like Marino, Timber, Saliba and Saka still being in the team. So I expect it to still be a big thing. Now, last but not least, obviously that is the general systems that Arsenal will have to do, I think, to beat PSG. They need to rely on physicality a lot more than anything else, but also I want them to be a little bit more braver on the ball than they have been in certain games, especially in that home leg. Jakub Kiwior is such an outlet from his left-hand passes that he can do from deeper areas. It has to be used in this game. If we can get Martinelli in and sort of bait Hakimi to come towards them and press him inwards, and then Kiwior can put that ball through, that is vitally important for our progression. But there also might be moments where he goes into that more left-back role where Miles comes into the middle, where he needs to carry that ball under pressure and hope his strength can hold them off, because Miles is a player that really is great with his strength, which is one of his key talents and the reason why he's in the squad right now. Maybe someone like Waneri isn't as favoured as much. And against teams like this where they're much more free flow and attacking greatness, if you've got physicality and a little bit of technical quality, we saw it before where we were able to get at PSG. Now, it's going to be harder without Havertz, it's going to be harder without Partey as well, of course, but if Marino is fit, you can play Marino in midfield where he's been excellent recently as well, where he can go or come towards them and Trossard can vice versa play off that. And Trossard was pretty good against PSG in the first leg, showing good physicality, good timing I felt on some of his moves, and obviously got that great assist. So it's not like he hasn't played in these games as well, which will be mightily important. Now, obviously there's so much more you could go into. This obviously isn't everything. You could go on to about this for ages, and it'll be interesting to see how these things work out. But an overly aggressive, free-flowing side against a very solid, physical, defensive team is going to be a very interesting watch. I think any team can win. Obviously, as an Arsenal fan, I'm going to want Arsenal to win and believe in us to win as well. I think we have a great ability to get something out of these games. It better be an interesting ball game nonetheless. If you want to see any more of my content, please go and watch the podcast I did on Forward this week where we did a stay or go with Arsenal's players' impact next season, if you want to see a bit of a longer form video. But I appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys. See you in the next one.